I know that goddess, but I have never experienced their energy.
All right, goddesses. Today I want to welcome Priya Thanks for joining me. She's going to actually introduce herself. I think you're going to find it really interesting. I would call her a bliss babe because, you know, I had the wise women and I had the bliss babe. So I would put her in the bliss babe category. Younger, youthful, joie de vivre she has, okay? And so we're just going to talk spirituality and other stuff. So Priya, just introduce yourself, share a little bit about yourself before we dive in.
Hi, I'm Priya. I live in New York City. I would like to say I'm a bliss babe. I would like to call myself a facilitator of bliss and peace.
Oh my gosh, bliss facilitator. That's probably taken because it's so good. Bliss facilitator, what?
That would probably be my mission on this planet if I would have to say I have this. Yeah, I'm a student.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to say I'm a new thought leader, a light worker. The list goes on. Many of us hold many titles, but mostly I just like to share space with people in peaceful, loving ways. So that's why I'm here.
All right. So you're a very spiritual person. You're deeply interested in spirituality. So see, my first question, what was your first awareness of like a spiritual experience or being spiritual that you could share with us?
It's interesting because I can't recall one specific thing.
Mm-hmm.
A little bit about my background. I say I technically grew up Catholic because that is true.
Right.
But all throughout my life, I'm 26, so I'm still young. But even in my childhood, I was aware of like astrology and mediumship and different philosophies and ideologies of different religions. So it was always a background.
Okay.
Like, I remember watching The Secret with my mom when it came out, and I was like, so the things like that I was primed for. So by the time I hit like 18, and I started going to crystal shops in New York City and like Namaste bookshop, and
right.
So I was
a
lot more open to it. I know a lot of people know that story.
Yeah, if they're New Yorkers, yeah, certainly, and or visit New York. Is it still there?
It's still there. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah. No, I love Namaste on 14th Street.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So I didn't really start applying what I was learning until like 2020, when things kind of went a type of way, and it kind of pushed me on a path, which I'm grateful for. It wasn't gentle. So I needed to use the tools that I had been cultivating and learning about in real time. And so I guess my spiritual experience, I say it's pretty mundane, but it was a toxic relationship gone wrong or right. And
which is what toxic relationships do.
Right. So it was divine timing, right? So it pushed me on my path of being a more spiritual person, a spiritual leader, I guess I could say, by making me focus on myself. And like, so it really opened me up to like why I'm here and what I'm doing and what is the goal. And I kind of got an accelerated, I don't even know what you call it, like degree. So I just was learning everything I could learn within that year, within
2020.
It was like August 2020. So after that, things just kind of kick-started, and I was like in all the classes and learning about stuff all the time. So it was kind of just pretty normal, I would say. I didn't have any like visions or dreams or things that kind of
But the not trauma. I don't want to use the word trauma, but the difficulty is what pushed you actually inside yourself.
Yeah.
Did you end? Did it ended the toxic?
Oh yeah. It's on the 8th of August. Well, in that Agents of Lionsgate period, and for whatever reason, that period always kind of like catalyzed me in a very interesting way. So it was kind of once that chapter closed, it was like, this is the path you're on and there's no looking back. So that's what I've kind of just been experiencing from there on out.
Wow. So I wonder, I mean, I have heard of it, but I haven't, because I'm not an astrologer, but yeah, it's 8/8. Like it's supposed to happen on 8/8 and like, yeah. Can you tell us more about it?
I think that's the peak of the gate. Okay. It's an energetic portal. We get some like codes and star codes from different places and beings. And I just found that around that time, it was always like a wake-up call. Like this is
multiple years you've had that experience. That's interesting. I think it probably also depends too on your astrology. Like I wonder if it's powerfully, my birthday is in August. It's around that time. But, you know, as you know, I feel like we're in such an accelerated time now, which I don't talk about that much on the channel, but it just feels, but it's like I'm experiencing it. We're all experiencing it where there'll be waves of different things, different energies, but yes, certainly more intuition, which I'd love to talk about. Like, that's what I feel like, yeah, getting sort of higher level knowing, ways to connect, being put on your path, that type of thing is like what I see. Cool. So that was kind of your first. All right. And so, and tell me before we get, because you took the Awaken the Divine Feminine program, which is how were you following me on YouTube before that?
I was following you on YouTube during the toxic relationship. So I was already familiar with your work. So I was like, ooh, I've always, liked your work, your meditations and yoga. Yeah, so I was very drawn to this course. And I felt like it was a good opportunity for me to really learn in a practical sense, in a grounded sense, like how to apply divine feminine teachings.
Yes.
Because before that, I felt I run a lot of masculine energy. So I'm very logical. Like I take classes and I have to read books. And I'm just like, but this was very different because we got to journey with goddesses. And even that's like a whole different paradigm. Like
it really is, Priya. And that's kind of the thing. I want to just say that, like, I feel like almost have to be ready for it because so I want to interject, but then I want to go back to you because a lot of programs, the programs that are out there that come up like a lot for Divine Feminine, what they do is they teach you like, these are 5 examples and they'll just like teach you them like, these are her symbols, this is what she governs. And my program is really different, but in some ways I think it's a little more challenging. It's more creative because I'm like, we're getting into shamanism and how for you to discover, and we'll definitely talk about your experiences, but for you to discover the goddess directly. And I do feel like that's almost like second level. Like there's 101 and then there's like, the next semester you're like, or the next year. So yeah. Go ahead. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. I found that to be the case for me as well. It was more so textbook versus experiential.
Exactly.
The divine feminine, like she's the ruler of the unknown. So there is no textbook. There is no right or wrong way of engaging with the feminine. So in the past, I felt like I had done enough studying, but I wanted to actually implement what I learned in a container that would actually support that.
Right. So you had been reading about the goddesses, and tell me, like I remember you saying there were particular goddesses you felt drawn to, right? Tell if you're comfortable. Yeah.
Yeah. So I
like
remember
prior.
Yeah. So Sekmet,
yes.
Those are my girls. And I guess in like the Greek pantheon, it would be Venus, and then Yamaya. So I was familiar with those energies, and I had never played with them. I just like, okay, this is
like interacted, like a sense of right.
On a spiritual level, it was more so intellectual. I was like, well, I know that goddess, but I have never experienced their energy. So
wow, I'm actually getting like chills as you said that, because the intellectual approach, it's like, it's not the approach, like literally it's the opposite of what the feminine is. The experiential is the idea also that you don't need a mediator between you, and her, and that like suchness, that's like a big part of what separates like the goddess archetype energies versus it's not about the study, though of course that can support you, but it's about this direct experience. So yeah, wow. Yeah, I'm really glad you brought that up because I wasn't even thinking or articulating that, but yeah, it's a very good point. So Priya really dived in and just did, it's a very practical program. So again, yeah, not like a lot of lecture. It's like we're doing stuff, and you really did dive in. And now as I'm thinking about it, it's probably because you had such you did have the left brain.
Yeah, I primed my brain.
You primed, yeah. So that's interesting. I may want to, in fact, I was thinking in this iteration of it to do just a little bit more. Then what happened in the program for you, or like afterwards, in terms of your connection with the divine feminine? So you wanted more experiential, more like practical tools to directly connect with the divine feminine. All right. So yeah. So how did it evolve for you? Because yeah, you had some really interesting, experiences.
So I felt that a big piece of it for me was safety. It's not ironic.
No.
That space helped me feel safer to open up and to be more creative and playful when it comes to shamanic journeying, because I hadn't experienced that kind of like space before, where I felt comfortable enough to like be held, and I could just go explore and then come back and share.
Now, safety is important. It's very important. And I'll just say that one of the things that I shared in the program is, and I actually have some about it on the YouTube channel, but it's grounding, centering, and shielding, like before you begin a journey, which is important. So yes.
And I would say for me, it was a lifestyle shift that I'm still learning to integrate.
Okay.
I live in the city.
You're in an urban environment.
And that I gotta go and do things, but it really helped me get back in my body and prioritize a practice, a devotional practice. It really turned that part of me on.
That's wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a different way of approaching my life that can be a lot more playful and stir and more intuitive. So it really allowed me to allow myself, my intuitive self, to come out more and to shine and to lead.
And I like the playful too, because often on a shamanic journey, which maybe we should, do you want to give your definition of it, of like just because I'm realizing that we haven't really defined what like shamanic journeying is. Do you want to take a stab at it, and then I'll add some stuff? Or I know that's
to me, shamanic journeying is just opening up to the different realms of existence and consciousness, specifically on this planet and beyond, and just allowing our consciousness to flow, fly, and explore. So of course we did like the underworld, the upper world, then there's the middle world, which is our plane, right?
Well, yeah. It's not, it's also good for sometimes going back to working with ancestors, the middle. Yeah, the middle.
I would say the shamanic journeying I've experienced was mostly in that class, so it was mostly with goddesses. But other than that, I've done like inner earth stuff and working with elementals. So I tend to play with it. I haven't done ancestral work in that way yet, but I have heard of that as well.
And so I guess the only, if folks are still like, what is it? Basically, I feel like especially a lot of us get intuitive hits, and we'll be like, oh, I had a dream. Like, I'm from Jamaica, and my mom would just be like, oh, I dreamt it. That was like very normal. So we dream it, it just came in a dream. We're like, yeah, that happened. Like very normal, even though our background might be very like more Orthodox Christian or Catholic, but it's like, oh yeah, no dreams. So I think that's really interesting. It's still there. There's this connection. But a shamanic journey, for many people, the easiest way to describe it is you basically close your eyes and it feels like you're imagining or making things up, but you just need to slightly alter your state. and that's actually the key thing, and I'm going to emphasize that more even this time, Priya, is like it's an altered state, and so for many women, which is when I start talking about the divine, like masculine, divine, feminine, it's for many of us that we don't go into altered states. We're just like 100% in the rational. We're like almost limiting ourselves. So it's basically you relax and it feels like you're sort of daydreaming, but you're then, and often it's in cultures, it's through drumming, like the drumming kind of takes you away. But it could be dance. There are different ways you could enter an altered state. And then you sort of commune with spirit, which, like I said, many of us who do, we're just like, oh yeah, I felt it, or I knew it, or grandpa came to visit, but this is kind of like a method.
As you're talking about, I'm like, oh yeah, it's daydreaming. I forgot. I was like, that's the key word. It feels exactly like a daydream.
Feels like, yeah, because I think people will get it that way, because most women, I hope at least, because I think daydreams can be a positive thing. So yeah, it just feels like a daydream. That's like what we're talking about. So yeah, good. So tell us like where your experience as you did it. And again, the program was only 5 sessions the first time. And when I asked everyone, they were like, yeah, it should probably be like 7, 8, or 9. There was one outlier who's like 9. Okay, 8 sessions. So we'll have more time to get ready for it. But Priya was able to really dive right in and just tell us, where did you end up, like in terms of connecting with spirit?
Yeah, so I got a new animal guide, which was fun. That's how we kind of led the journeying. We started off with getting
like a spirit guide. Yeah. An animal ally
to help us meet with the goddess who kind of showed up. I felt like it wasn't me choosing who I get to meet. It was more so spirit decided who I was ready for and what I was ready for. Okay, the spirit animal at first, it was a fish. It was like a white iridescent. It was almost between like a cross between a koi fish and this other kind, like where they have very voluminous tails and their
fins. Yeah, right. Okay, very like billowy.
Yes.
And interestingly, very feminine. And of course, almost everybody knows water in almost every spiritual system is linked with women specifically, and the emotions. So and the moon. So that's interesting. Like when you just said a fish, like a fish did, but you when you describe
like, huh?
A fish just sounded really boring. No, but then when you described, it was like, oh, okay. No, I could see, so yes.
In a river. That's actually what happened. I walked.
You walked into a
riverbank during the journey, and so she kind of just floated up out of the water. It was like, I'm your spirit guide, and I was like, all right.
Game on. Where are we going? Yeah.
And then the goddess that I met was well, actually, it didn't start off as a goddess. What came through first was a mountain and a tree. And it was Mount Fuji, and it was a cherry blossom tree. Familiar with Mount Fuji and cherry blossoms, so that felt pretty normal to my mind, my logical mind. And then I remembered and also Googled that there's a goddess of Mount Fuji, and she's the cherry blossom goddess. So the way she showed up was naming symbols.
Well, of course, yeah.
Which is really how I feel the goddess presents herself to most of us.
In nature. In nature, absolutely. Every single goddess in every culture has there's a, it's an oak tree, or there's a connection to a very specific, animal, or like there's always. So yeah. Were you surprised though? Tell us about, because I know, I think you were a little bit surprised. Tell us.
I thought it was going to be a different Japanese goddess. So when she showed up, it was like, oh, this is different. But then again, I learned you don't really control the journey. You just allow it to happen. So
Well, and that's how you know it's a journey, real quick, because we were saying, oh, it's like a daydream. The thing is, in a daydream, Priya probably wouldn't have picked up a fish, right? And other women in the program, they're like, oh, it was some really random animal that their logical mind would not have picked. And that's one of the ways that you know that you are journeying, because they'll, like you said, it'll be unexpected, and it'll be playful, and it'll be like, what? Like you'll literally be like, what? and that's, it's sort of unfolding. Yeah. So can you pronounce her name?
yes,
Multi-syllable name. Go ahead.
Konohana Sakuya Hime.
And that's who ultimately you became aware that it was presenting herself.
So she's the goddess of Mount Fuji, and her symbol is the cherry blossom. So sometimes spirit's very literal. People that need it. Yeah, so even during the journey, I felt a lot. I heard laughter, so I was like, "Oh, this is like so playful and sensual," and it's like I'm climbing up the mountain, and this feels like I'm getting my feet rooted, and I'm feeling. It was very, even though in the journey I went to the upper world. Experience, it still felt like I was being brought back to my body. Grounded.
That's wonderful. Yeah, that's the hallmark again, is that body mind split. You know, again, when I talk about the split with the masculine and feminine, there's a bit of a denigration of the body in our world. There's a glorification of it, but it's still so it's like a superficial glorification, like plastic surgery, keep it very young, keep it perfect through any means necessary, right? But at the same time, mind is given more, like your mind is more important, more powerful than the body overall. And so, but tell us, because folks are going to be like, okay, well, so how did you end up in Japan? Did you have previous connections? So talk about that and like your surprise or not surprise. Yeah.
Yeah. So I since I'm already familiar with working with land, I kind of listen to when land calls to me. So I had already been feeling that pull, and it was kind of like the right place at the right time, where spirit just kind of came through and was like, okay, you're open, let's go. I had been called I felt like a spirit call to the specific island called Okinawa. And it has a history of priestesses and water priestesses.
Which is, now, did you know that? You knew that part before? Okay. But you felt this pull, like of all the places in the world.
I didn't know about the priestess piece until after I was called there.
Okay, and see, that's deep, yeah. And Okinawa also has, I know, and I'd said this, and correct me if I'm wrong, because you probably know more about it, but there's like a native people aspect to the Okinawan Islands that are, you know, that's a little different than like the more kind of standard Japanese.
It's completely different. It's called like the Ryukyu Kingdom. So it wasn't even Japan. And
they didn't think they were right. Japan thought, like, I mean, there was a colonial thing happening, right?
Exactly. So that's where that priestess lineage comes from. It started off with the indigenous people of that island, where they were the ones who were like the spiritual leaders of community, and they would provide guidance.
Yeah, I'm getting like, again, little chills. Yeah. Guys, I have to jump in here and say, and this is what I say to a lot of my students, and again, for the ones who aren't ready for it, they're just like, that's so weird. But I feel like with Priya, it's very probably a past life connection that she has had, because you will find you're called to different parts of the world that you're like, why am I going to that part? You know, if you're questioning, doubting mind. But then, as you said, then some things you know, and then from our journeys, which is what makes it really exciting, you literally go on the Googles and you find out stuff that really resonates with what you either knew or felt that you did not know before. And even as you practice shamanism more, you literally, like, that will happen more, where in your journey, you'll be shown something and you're like, oh, is that true? And then you go look it up, and it's like, and if you really dig and find your research, it's like, oh yes, they did this, 5,000 years ago. We're not even talking like 100. It'll be like, oh, there are these ruins and we don't know what they are. And in your journey, you were told something related to that. Like, you cannot make it up. So yeah, it's pretty fascinating. It's pretty deep. So what has that done for you? Like, do you feel, you've said you feel more embodied, certainly when you're connecting in with the divine feminine energies. And do you feel like it's a way to kind of get, not necessarily advice, but get like support, kind of advice? Yeah.
Actually, both, I would say.
Yeah.
I use spirit as Google, if I'm being honest. Like,
as the Googles, right. Well, there's the real Google, and then I'm just going to go check this, which ladies, and we're not even the only ones saying this. Somebody else was saying that going forward, we're just going to have to check things with our intuition, because with AI and with, already this whole like fake news that we just know, a lot of it's like BS. You're going to have to truth is just going to be completely internal. This is either true to me or it's not, which could be horrifying on a society level, but we'll go ahead.
Yeah, that's why programs like this help. You're kind of getting a head start where we're going anyways. And especially for women, I feel like it's important to train our intuition, because we didn't even know we had it. Now we know we have it. Now we actually have to train it and put it into practice. So I feel like this is a very pivotal time for that kind of work. And for me,
absolutely.
I value investing in my intuition and in my intuitive skills, because that's what actually guides me. I lead with spirit first. And then I'll try my best to lead with spirit first. And then if I need to verify, I'll do my little searches.
Right. No, that's so deep. I mean, there was one statement you made that, but then you went on, but it was really beautiful. I'll see if I can pull it out. It was just that I think it was before you said the times we're in, like we have to, definitely, like we have to train it. We are intuitive. That's first, accepting that, giving it primacy, giving it like it's important. Like, listen, actually, I don't know if I'm going to read this book. I'll show it really quick. The very opposite of this, but I'm just going to hold it up. It's called The Gift of Fear. It's a little bit disturbing, but he basically is like, he's, highly regarded as the nation's foremost authority on the protection of public figures. And, it's the gift of fear. So it's about intuition and trusting your vibes when you might be in a dangerous situation, right? So it's the reason I say it's disturbing is because he's going to use like real life criminal examples. So we'll see if I read this book, people. If you get a vibe about somebody, or you're about to go in a room, or that's what I'm saying. This is almost like a self-defense.
I'm thinking about how I want to explain this without going too far out there. But I'm like, the way we're evolving as humans, most of us will start realizing, like, not only are we psychic, but like we're very gifted, and our gifts and our psychic abilities are actually here to help us navigate our reality. And like,
which is slipping and shifting so fast that
so it's like our intuition helps us be on the leading edge or in the pocket. Like, before the masses necessarily catch up to things, it's like your intuition will always guide you to where you need to be, when you need to be
ahead.
And the who, what, where, when, how, why is already figured out. You just need to listen to your guidance. But in terms of the class, I feel like that's, like you were saying, it helped me move my practice. It's become a priority. It's like now a primacy. That's what you said. I don't remember exactly what you said.
Yeah. No, that's beautiful. I mean, it's really served you well. And so you talked a little bit about just your practice without giving any details that you're not comfortable with. Like, so how do you, after the program now, working with this goddess, have you, like, I mean, you have some plans to, like, you want to look at least visiting that area, right? Or like, tell us a little bit about that.
I listened to the call. I remember reading on Twitter, I forgot who said it, like, when mountains call, go.
Really? Okay. Because mountains are sacred in every culture except here, where we just climb them and we're like, oh, I scaled such and such mountain, right? We don't have, for instance, Mount Everest is a sacred mountain, right? And you've just got people's dead bodies. Don't set me off on this.
Sorry.
littering the friggin' mountain with like their puff jackets and no respect for the mountain. And you need respect on Mount Everest or any So,
yes, I forgot where I heard this, but someone said like Mount Fuji is not for climbing either. Like that's a goddess. I remember someone's.
It was historically, absolutely. We're not making this stuff up. It was sacred. I mean, I think you could pilgrimage there. You know what I mean? But it was with this awareness that you were like walking on like almost like a living being. So it wasn't just like, yeah, let's go have some sake up there. Let's just like party or whatever. And I mean, I think that's still part of the Japanese culture. I'm not sure, but I think most people just are like, oh, I'll just climb. It's pretty. I'll just climb it, you know?
I mean, I do want to go to Japan and I do want to go to Okinawa, but I also listen to my spirit.
Yeah.
When the timing is right. And I want to do it in an ethical way and really make it sacred again, making travel sacred and going because I feel called and the land's calling me and we have work to do.
And that's really, for those, again, who don't know, that's like the next level shamanism. You might be shown, for instance, Priya, to just go up there. It might be very simple and be on the ground and, you know, like some incense, or actually, which is huge in Japan, to and just say a prayer. Like it might be something simple that you're supposed to do. So just so folks understand that sometimes you are told something you're supposed to do. It's always positive. It's never going to be like, go kill this person. I just have to say that because it's going to go on YouTube. It won't be that. It will be something about reverence or clearing an area energetically. You know, so you may, like, for instance, I know with Mount Fuji, like there's a specific path, like maybe you say prayers as you're climbing, which I think some people still do, right? People who, like the old people who know. So often spirit will give like a task just to almost re-sacralize, I think that is a word, to make sacred again an area. So yeah, that's not like new age. This is, you know, something our ancestors would do. And to me, why I'm wanting to teach this Awaken the Divine Feminine, that's what we've lost is, right, Priya, we didn't touch on it, but part of the program too is to connect to your environment. So now Priya's in an urban environment. Many of my viewers probably are, but we as women, we want to have some connection to our actual environment. It's strengthening. And like everybody's heard about, you know, like, what is it called? Like just rooting, being barefoot on the earth. Like that's become, interestingly, really popular again. Like people are talking about it. But yeah, we want to connect into place as well. So you're not isolated. We're not an isolated human. We're in this biosphere of other, like I'm looking at like the trees, all my trees are blossoming, and just we want to feel that connection. It helps us to not feel as alone. But it can be challenging, right, in an urban environment.
Yeah, that's why I work. I primarily acknowledge the land and work with the land and learn from the land. So I'm lucky enough where I live near a river and a waterway and a park. So I actually have access to go some grass and a tree. But a lot of people don't. So programs like this will help you do that energetically. And
yeah, you can do it energetically. Absolutely. You can. Absolutely. Yeah.
So a big piece is definitely restoring that connection that we have to the earth.
Yeah.
And as we heal that, we heal ourselves, we heal the earth, and we can move forward in this way.
Feeling more whole. You know, if you could connect into nature, you're going to feel that joy and bliss. But I feel like, Priya, many people don't experience that because, again, you're so disconnected, you know, the way we're brought up, even through the schooling system, you know, even your playground is like concrete, you know, right? Real quick, I was in a place, I often gravitate to these crunchy towns. And so like they have like preschools and schools for like little kids where they're just like out, they're like, oh, they're out in the mud. Even if it's raining, the kids are like out, like that's part of their thing. Like, yeah, why do kids need, like, they don't need concrete, they need to go climb a tree and like, you know, find a frog, and they do that with the kids. It's so nice.
I still think about climbing trees. I've never actually climbed one, but I want to. That's still my plan. Right? So that's something that I feel passionate about teaching and helping to facilitate, like that connection, that restoration piece of like, we're not separate from nature, no matter where we are on this planet.
Mm-hmm.
The more we connect to nature, the more whole we feel, the more bliss we can cultivate.
We can cultivate, yeah, and community. I mean, for some of us more, and I know you mean that, right? Because it's bringing people together. There were also always, like, typically the shamans, people who were like professionally shamans, were often, they were integrated, but I think there was a deep respect for them, and in some ways they were separate. Like, I do think some people, this is my own thing I'm riffing on, sometimes artists need a little separation from the marketplace, I'll call it, the everyday life, because that's how they can cultivate their gifts. So I'm just throwing that out because that's often for me. But while saying that, I think we also definitely need community, right? Like you said, you felt supported, like the other women were going through it and they'd report what they saw or didn't see.
Yeah. And that's what makes it real, because we're all doing it in real time. We've never experienced anything like this before.
Exactly.
But just showing up when we're open enough to try feels encouraging, because it made me want to, I'm like, I definitely want to do another round of this class and another one. I want to see more people, women, show up and own their intuitive gifts. And
right.
I found that even if we didn't have anything remotely in common in terms of our journeys or our lives, there was still something valuable shared, or there was still like, someone would share their vision and we're like, oh my God, that resonates with me, or I dreamt about this. And so there was this thing.
And that happens, interestingly, with shamanism when you get a group together. So you might get something that's literally not for you, but it's like for this other person in the group, and they'll be like, oh my God. Or you'll see similar things, which is when it gets really interesting. And I was going to say weird, like, oh wow, like it's almost like you're dreaming together. There can be this overlap happen, and you're like, how did you? Real quick story, when I was with my teacher, I was a woman I did not know. We both went back to like the same century and the same place. And that's weird, out of the whole world. And it was way back. It was like 7th century. It was way, way back. Like, and I'm like, whoa, how did you go there? Like, how did that happen? And again, I think that's past lives sometimes, because people through various lives, as you know, I do think we circle with the same people, like, or a group, right? And maybe some lives we don't see them, but we'll see this other, like our other little constellation of our family or whatever. Because we both were like, that's just an interesting, obscure overlap for us to have on our journey. That I think is based on a past life where we might have been, in shamanism, where it gets weird for people is this idea that like you could have been the mother or you could have been the child. Like, it's very shifting. It's not like you weren't exactly you born. You had a different role. Anyway, so let's talk just briefly before we close. Yeah, your plans for the future. You touched on that you do want to journey to Japan. That's one place, to Okinawa specifically. Yeah.
And part of it is doing grid work. So it's doing land alchemy. It's through activating land. It's through helping to restore. Through prayers, through intentions, specifically with water.
Is what you're being shown, like water.
Which is wow. I love water. But yeah, I'm still in the city though. So I want to be able to do that work here now, remotely.
Which you can, like shamanically, it is also totally the idea that you don't have to be in the exact time and space to heal. So yes, just for folks who don't know, yeah, that is definitely something.
Yeah, so this summer, I intend to like officially launch my business. That's the plan. In July. So I will be helping to like facilitate experiences of helping people connect to their land more, primarily in urban areas. Like, that's my focus. I want people to be able to feel grounded, to feel rooted. And
I love it, Priya. That's so what I love. One thing, and then definitely want to hear more though, is I love that you're working with where you are. And that's in fact where people are most, because it's harder. You're kind of choosing, but it's where you are. So I think spirit almost always puts us, the thing that's a challenge is also like, the way out or the gift.
Yes.
So, wow. Oh my gosh. I think that's you probably, maybe come back once you have it. Can you tell us a little bit more about it? Do you have a name or?
Not yet. I'm working on it. I feel this one name that wants to be the name.
Okay.
Yeah. I found that I found myself asking, like, why am I here? Specifically, like in this location.
In this place.
And then I started getting answers because I listened, and it was like, it's the gift. Like, you're helping to alchemize
This place. Oh, I love it. I can totally see you, like, and you're wearing like this long, I see like her in this like urban environment. People are like, what is going on? And you've got a group of other people with you and you're in a park and people are like, I don't know, they're doing some voodoo shit. I don't know.
That's my vision. Honestly, I've gone into my park playing a thumb harp, and I'm like, I'm going to sing to the trees and I'm going to do my thing regardless.
I love thumb harps. I broke one, which is because it's like a gourd, right? The back, it fell and it just like, because it's a natural thing. It cracked it and I was so upset. I'm like, I'm going to glue it together. And I think I just never did. But so I could totally see you doing that. And I think you're going to get tons of women who want. And now you're going to be open to, is it for everyone at this point? What are you thinking?
I specifically was gearing it towards women, but honestly, whoever feels called to show up will show up. So.
Right. And just do like sort of just connecting back to the land and restoring. You're probably literally, this is what I always say. For me, Central Park, I say New York would have fallen apart completely if not for Central Park. Central Park is the heart of New York. I'm talking to my New Yorkers there. It's huge. It is a huge park. When you look at it relative to the size of Manhattan, it's quite large. And Manhattan, I know this might seem weird to folks who aren't from New York, but Manhattan is surrounded by water. And I think the fact that New York hadn't fallen into complete chaos was that water moving around it. And then the heart, literally the heart of it, is this beautiful green park. Look it up for folks who are watching me from other places that you don't know what I'm talking about. But Central Park, Priya, there are a lot of places there too that you could totally do your thing. Nobody'd really know. And I could see groups of people. There's so many beautiful parks. Yeah, I'd love to talk to you about that. There's also Inwood. Is it Inwood Park? Spectacular park that not a lot of people know about who are out of that area. Right?
Yeah, so I feel really called to do grid work and being, I guess, an ambassador or bridge between like humanity and nature. And we really need to do our piece wherever we are, no matter where we are, to really help bring more, I want to say harmonious. That's the word of the day. Like
more harmony. Before we close, is there any way that they can get in touch with you or just follow you at this point because you're developing it? At Instagram, she's at Priya Yoba, so it's PRIAYOBA, and I'll put a direct link, over to Instagram. And I do think your name has a certain energy. Interestingly enough, I think it's probably for this work. So, is there any last thing though you want to add before we go?
This was great. I love the community that you've been cultivating, and I'm glad to be a part of it.
Thank you. Yeah, and that is actually, so there is a community, and I think it's called it has got Goddess in the Goddess Sanctuary, and that's like a monthly monthly membership community. But if you're taking the Awaken program, it's part of it while you're in the Awakening program. So you have a place where you can share and stuff. Because I've done programs where there's no place to connect outside of the classes. So you could definitely check that out. And you don't have to be in Awaken the Divine Feminine to be part of the community. Right now, I am doing twice a week a meditation in there. Let's see what else. And so, Awaken the Divine Feminine. The next cohort is to start June 2nd. I believe it's June 2nd. Is that a Sunday? I think that's a Sunday. So check out the program, Awaken the Divine Feminine. That's what Priya was in. And clearly just developing her, it's perfect for spiritual women, because what I love though is that you're developing, which is the point of it. You're developing your leadership and you're going in a direction for you. I think that's so exciting. It's not like I don't believe in prescribing, because a lot of programs and teachings are like that. Like, oh, then you're certified in this which can be fine, but I love when people take something and make it their own, because that's the creative. So I love that, the creativity. And you already knew, it sounds like you came in with that like connection to nature. So you have that. And I think for a lot of women, they don't have that. So that's something that in the program they can hopefully start to develop. So yeah, I'm very excited to see where you take it. I love the urban thing. Like I said, I see you in a long dress and you've got your bag with all your little tools, right? Yeah, reach in, a little smudging. Like, people in the cars are like, what's going on there? You know, and a group with you and around you. And yeah, I just think it'd be really beautiful. Thank you for sharing that vision, because I didn't know that. I think you mentioned like super briefly, like, yeah, I think I want to do something in the city or something, but you didn't have it. Yeah, you hadn't fleshed it out. Yeah, I think it's so beautiful. It's so needed. And, you know, you might work with other practitioners too. I mean, I'm getting maybe some drummers want to be part of what you're going to do. I see some potential like African drummers like sitting, you know, where the drums are right on the ground a little bit. That might be just an obvious connection, but there's something about the drumming that really pulls people in, especially in an urban environment where where Priya, you're almost going to need to kind of screen, you know what I mean? And so the sound can be a way to hold the group together. That sounds, yeah. Anyway, thank you so much, Priya, for being here, and really appreciate you.